Transforming Hawaii's food system is critical at this time for a number of important reasons. As we're discussing at this third annual Hawaii Food Systems Summit, we see an average rate of household food insecurity across Hawaii at around 30%. That is 1/3 of all Hawaii households, hundreds of thousands of people, face chronic household food insecurity, and that is they do not have the resources to gain access to adequate amounts of safe, affordable, quality food to live a normal, healthy, productive life. And so that's one critical reason we need to transform the food system and in the outcomes around food insecurity. Beyond that, there's several other reasons, one having to do with climate change adaptation and mitigation. We know that the climate is changing. Severe weather events can cause disruption in the commodity chains that keep Hawaii fed. And so building functional redundancy, creating programs to ensure household emergency preparedness, making sure that we have adequate amounts of commercial and emergency food stored in the state of Hawaii in the case of a natural disaster is critical. And lastly, I'll mention that it's also important how we produce food. So we know that agriculture is a significant driver of negative environmental outcomes, greenhouse gas emissions, loss of nutrients from farming systems, erosion. We have the knowledge, we have the scientific knowledge and understanding of how to transition farming systems to more ecologically sound production that will both reduce environmental harms and help us both mitigate and adapt to climate change.
I think the role of collaboration is the foundation of addressing any challenge. We're becoming more and more aware of the intersectionality of our challenges, whether it's climate change disruption, affordable housing, economic justice, food insecurity, and the collaborative approach we're understanding as coming at it from a systems change. And without collaboration, we really can't address the root causes to the systemic issues that are at the core of food insecurity here in Hawaii. They're connected to so many other things, and there's so many different types of organizations that are addressing them, that are positioned as solution-based approaches. We're seeing more and more collaboration happening between philanthropy and government and grassroots community organizations and groups that we could say conventionally have been siloed. So I'm really appreciating and am inspired by collaborative approaches becoming the norm in addressing the issues that our communities are facing. And it's not, someone else's problem, but understanding our relationship and connection to those issues and understanding the root causes. And then understanding each other's positionality and kuleana and capabilities. For example, a collaboration where we have government and philanthropy and grassroots or community-based organizations addressing food insecurity. There's a particular skill set, positionality, and capability that each of those entities hold that the other doesn't. So really understanding your role within that, your positionality within that, even your power and your privilege within those areas, to be able to foster a collaboration that is genuinely oriented to creating well-being and solutions that address those problems at the root. I think collaboration is intuitive within our communities, especially here in Hawaii, generationally, genealogically, culturally. We innately understand that relationships and pilina and collaboration are essential for well-being. And to see it being brought into contemporary times for solutions-based approaches to food insecurity and other challenges that we're facing is really inspiring, and it is paying homage and honoring the vaivai, the wealth of knowledge and cultural brilliance and understanding that we inherently have here in Hawaii. So I'm really excited about that and bringing it into the mainstream.
So I was inspired to attend the summit from two positions, really. One, I work with the Community Gardens program with the City and County of Honolulu, and we're a recreational program, and we do have a lot of people participating as a hobby and growing all kinds of things, not just food, but at the same time we are learning that people are using their community gardens for food, and it is therefore a part of the food system. So I was inspired to attend to be able to learn and connect with others who are supporting or interested in getting involved in expanding community gardens. And then secondly, I'm here because I'm a volunteer with the Hui Mala'ai, which is a food gardens network. Community Gardens of the City is a member of this network, and we convene regularly to discuss the challenges and barriers to increasing access to food gardens, and hopefully address them with solutions, with funding solutions, with finding land, maybe with some policy work. We are still young, so we're figuring out what we can do right now and what we want to do in the long term. And I find that working with other organizations, individuals, people who are in the private, public sector, whatever it may be, who have this similar vision and collective goal, we just have a lot more impact. We have more resources, and we can be more collaborative and effective. And especially when it comes to community gardens and food gardens, it's not as easy as just raising money and getting funds to put garden beds in the ground, especially if we have the goal of increasing access to people who need it the most, right? If you want to include equity work into community garden work, then there's other barriers to address, like finding land that's adjacent to where people are living who might not have access to land, or public housing sites, for example, or schools, right? So these are more complex barriers than just simply questions of funding, and I love working with people to address complex goals. So that's the Hui Mala'ai helps with that, and then of course the Hawaii Food System Summit as a space to collaborate and work together towards these goals is really helpful.
Our recent crises have really laid bare what many folks already knew and know, given the difficulties of surviving at the everyday level for households facing food insecurity, for farmers and producers facing extremely high costs and other barriers. So issues and crises that have arisen recently lay those kinds of dynamics bare, but folks have known about them because they've been living through these situations for many years in some cases. We are at a point where we are facing increased risk of crises from our climate change and other dynamics that are ongoing. And so we really need to resource the work that we do together and ensure that we are coordinating and uplifting the efforts of community members. We learned a lot during COVID-19. That was actually when I first came back to Hawaii and started being active in this work. And it was obviously a time of a lot of challenge, but also the challenge that was put to us was to coordinate, was to really build those relationships. And communities were leading. They were doing the work. They're out there ensuring that folks are safe and have what they need. And so we look to them as experts as we build those networks. The difficulty and the risk is that we don't learn from those kinds of experiences. And I think many folks have continued that collaboration, which is really promising. But as we've seen with Maui and Maui in particular, a whole different set of issues arise. Again, that some folks were tracking and have been tracking around stewardship of land and how that's managed, and the important role that agricultural producers and land stewards can play and do play in creating safety for communities. So these crises lay bare what some folks have already known and have been working very hard to ensure that is brought to the surface and brought to the forefront of our minds. And so as we continue to face crises along this level, we really have to face that coordination piece down and really think about how do we resource that? How do we ensure that folks have time to communicate, to build relationships, to put preparations in place? In some sense, it's not so much planning, which we may also be involved with, but it is about being prepared. And so cultivating that sense together, working with community, uplifting ongoing efforts, of which there are so many really truly inspiring efforts to build resilience. That is the key. And our true vulnerability really is in not learning from these crises and in not working together.
And I say this, from my role as the advocacy director with Hawaii Farmers Union, we seek to engage our membership to advocate on policy that will support small, medium-sized, family-owned farm operations to pursue what is largely organic or regenerative, conservation-minded agricultural activities. The importance particularly of that advocacy at the legislature is to ensure that the bills that are put forward are shaped and addressing the specific needs of our constituents and our members. And overall, I would say the importance of advocacy is to, one, make sure that you can learn a little bit more about the civic process, the ways it works, the ways it doesn't work, and ideally that can build a more civic-minded population that will be making year over year better and better decisions about who they'd like to put into office and the things they'd like to see those elected officials enact. So for the coming legislative session, some flagship bills that I hope to see move forward, one of which is a Farm to Families program, which would be providing consistent funding that's earmarked for local purchasing that could be then distributed out by food banks and their partner agencies across the state. So this is a really critical measure, in particular because as a key social safety net in everyday settings, right? So we have near COVID levels of household food insecurity have persisted with significant increase in our food price over time. I think something near on 25% inflation in food price in the past 4 or 5 years. As a result, we have communities, families across the state who rely on social safety net programs, whether that's SNAP or Double Up Bucks, or community food distributions by pantries, soup kitchens, and others that may be partnered with their island or county food bank. This program is designed to provide resources for those food banks in particular to buy directly from local farms and make sure that that fresh food gets to local families. And this is a critical means by which we can get fresh food to local families to ensure nutritional capacity, which has outcomes for our keiki in terms of growth rates and educational opportunities being able to be met so that no keiki is going to school hungry. Some other measures that I think are of great importance and related to that last point are about universal free school meals. And the state has the opportunity to ensure that no student is having to struggle to learn because they don't have enough food in their belly. Ideally, the goals that are already in place for local food purchasing that have long been, have for a few years been in place for goals to increase local purchasing by various state departments, including the Department of Education. Ideally, by increasing the amount of feeding that happens, could also increase the benefit to local farmers by DOE hopefully starting to make significantly more progress on their local purchasing goals.
Well, SNAP benefits are a huge help to local residents. SNAP benefits, formerly known as food stamps. This program is a federally supported program, a federally funded program that helps over 130,000 residents in Hawaii, providing them over $630 million every year in supports to buy groceries. This is roughly $400 per month for every person in Hawaii. In order to help improve this system, we need to make it more accessible. This is a federally funded program that's administered at the state level, and so people apply with the State Department of Human Services to make sure that they can access benefits. Unfortunately, this process to apply is very cumbersome due to a lack of staffing at the Department of Human Services. We need to greatly increase the number of staff so people can access SNAP benefits that they are owed. Currently, only 62% of the eligible SNAP population is actually participating in the program. Many people are not participating because the process to apply is so difficult. People are waiting 4+ hours on the phone before they ever speak to anybody and end up giving up before they can complete the application process. This is something that we can easily fix, that we can make more accessible to bring in more money to our local and families in need. In addition, not enough people are eligible for SNAP. The income limits are far too low, and so the state can set up a supplemental system to the federal program that allows more people to benefit from the SNAP that they are needing. 1 in 3 people are hungry, and they do not need to be. If we create a robust SNAP system that is very easy to apply to, we can end hunger for all of our local residents.
A moment that gives me hope in this work is being able to carry on the work started by my predecessors in the city focused on food systems strengthening. We were able to successfully wrap up Ag Grants Level 1 program, which awarded 67 small farmers with money so that they could recoup some of their losses due to the pandemic. And my work going forward is hinging on that success, as well as the energy that's here at the Food Systems Summit to strengthen the City and County of Honolulu's position within food systems.
The best outcome that we can see from this summit is an empowered network of individuals and organizations across the state, and especially on local levels, where we start to see each other as our best allies and our best leaders and best supporters. I think that this really comes down to relationships and how we treat each other and uplift one another in this work, and I really look forward to the connections that are being made today and tomorrow and for the future as we step forward together, knowing that we take care of ourselves.
For me, it's the urgency of the situation. We know over 30% of people in Hawaii are food insecure. We have great health disparities. We have low levels of emergency food and water preparedness. And of course, everybody knows about the 85 to 90% of our food that's imported. So we have great opportunities to improve the resilience of the local food system. For me, one of the things that I'm most encouraged by is the gaining momentum around food systems as a lens to address these multiple challenges simultaneously. We're breaking down silos and we're taking a much more holistic perspective.
My vision for food system transformation over the next year is that through a range of policy and programming that the state of Hawaii will realize the 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And as it relates to food and agriculture, we should see zero hunger in Hawaii. We should see more sustainable forms of agriculture taking place in Hawaii. We should see zero health inequalities between the Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander community and the state average. We should see that there are new economic development opportunities for agriculturalists in Hawaii. They should realize greater economic viability in the context of global competition for feeding Hawaii's population. We should see greater climate change adaptation and mitigation in our food and farming systems, making sure that Hawaii is prepared for natural disasters. And so there's a range of different policies and programs that can be put into place over the next 10 years to ensure some of those outcomes. And the Transforming Hawaii's Food System Together initiative will continue to put forward policy ideas, conduct applied research to inform public policy, and the summit will serve as an important convening space for stakeholders across the Hawaiian Islands to come, discuss policy priorities, educate one another about pressing issues in the agri-food system, and work together to transform Hawaii's food system to achieve those goals.